And welcome. We are live, Soaring Prophets Thursday night live, where we unveil the stories of champions. And tonight is a champion. She saw a problem, and instead of just accepting it, she overcame it, found a way around it, and then built it so other people could find a way around it. Pat Dunn, back in 2019, had to decide what she was going to do because the economy was kind of hurting her. She was struggling making rent, etc., and she had to figure out how to pivot from that. And what she ended up doing was starting a Facebook group where like-minded women could meet, join together, and find a common ground where they could find a rental place or buy a house or move forward in some way where they could live together. She, in fact, ended up meeting two wonderful women. And back in 2019, after some discussion about cleaning and who's going to do the garbage and stuff like that, ended up moving in together. And I am very excited about this because you know how Pat's been talking over and over again. If you go out and see his financial fitness stuff, the economy is really struggling. And maybe this is a way for everyone forward, not just senior women. Fortunately, she has gone further than that, and now she's trying to help other people. And she started the Senior Women's. Oh, it just left me. Pat, help me out. Senior Women
Living Together.
Senior Women Living Together, which is a nonprofit, and she did it. And she's here now to tell us all about it. Pat Dunn, thank you so much for coming on our show. You really are a champion. I love what you're doing. I love how you're uplifting other women. And I can't wait to hear all about it. Where I'd like to start, though, is let's go back to 2019. Tell us a little bit of your history and what inspired you. You hit a roadblock, and what inspired you to overcome it?
Yeah, well, it all came out of a need. I found myself 4 years after my husband died. I was running out of money, and I was not going to be able to afford to live anywhere. And I was envisioning within a year I'd be starting to go into debt just to put a roof over my head. So my husband and I had been traveling in the Caribbean, and it was our retirement trip on our boat, and he died suddenly. He was 66 and I was 64. Wow. So I had to come back to Canada. I had to sell the boat, come back to Canada, and try to find somewhere I could live. And my income was, I had, pensions, the normal pensions, and a very small income from a career that I'd had for 13 years in public health. I was a public health nurse. So it wasn't going to cut it. And all I could think was, I wonder if there's some other women, senior women like me, who are struggling and worried and, well, actually terrified about homelessness and poverty. And I wondered, and I didn't know. So I thought, well, I'll open a Facebook group and I'll invite women in the Peterborough, Lindsay area to come and talk about maybe living together, to see if that, if women were interested in that. And I really thought, I might get 10 women. The end of the first week, I had 50. By the end of the first month, I had 200.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, this isn't just my problem.
Yeah.
And there's a gap here. It's not just my gap. And I'm going to have to do something, because I can't invite these women to come and talk about it and get all excited. They all kept saying, oh, I feel like I have hope now. This could work. And I thought, I can't just say, oh, well, I just want my 2 homemates and off you go. Right. So I had a background in doing developing programs. So it just was natural for me to start thinking of this. Well, what kind of a program could I develop so that everybody could have this happen for them too? So, yeah, and then it just kept morphing from there, bigger and bigger. We have 2,300 in our Facebook group now, and 500 on our website looking for other homemates.
Well, that's fantastic, Pat. And again, I talk a lot, like James was saying, in regards to financial markets and real estate and the business of that. And I think all too often, investors, individuals like myself that are dealing with multifamily properties and portfolios, we all too often get to the ROI and we look at the bottom line, and it's very easy to lose sight that line item on your taxes at the end of the year is a family, is someone that is, potentially at the end of their line when it comes to their financial resources. And what you're building here, obviously, James and I take great care in focusing on mental health and wellness and championing the stories of people. And with what you're doing is that you're going out there and you're giving a face to a very real need. And a lot of our people in our comments tonight here are out of the United States. And in Canada, we have a very uniquely desperate situation in housing. Everywhere in the world is struggling right now with inflation. People are struggling putting food on the table. But in Canada, we've seen property values double in the last 5 years. And how does that happen? Right? It doesn't matter where you are financially and trying to plan for your retirement or what that process is going to look like. There's no financial plan in the world that will outpace 100% growth in an asset class that you might not have. Mm-hmm. So in Canada, we are uniquely hindered with this fast and exponential growth. When people are reaching out to you, what are some of the stories that they're coming with? It seems like your story is not all that uncommon, where they might have been, a homemaker, even where they didn't have that income, now find themselves in a situation where that pension is just not indexed in the way that how could it ever keep up? What are some of their stories?
Well, gosh, that's what I found. I mean, every day new members joining the Facebook group, and I'm hearing these stories. Some of them had never told anyone. Their children didn't even know, but they were living in their cars.
Right.
They were, couch surfing, a friend here for 2 months, a relative for 2 months, that sort of thing. And I thought, gosh, I thought I was in desperate straits. Prior to opening the Facebook group, I was couch surfing with my sister. I was sleeping on her couch, and I was trying to figure out whether living in my car was an option. And, oddly enough, actually not so odd, sadly, there's an excellent website about how you can live safely in your car, believe it or not. Imagine that in this day and age. But anyway, but I thought, no, there's got to be something better than that. There's got to be. And that's when I got the idea to start talking with other women about living together, saving money, and having companionship too. So I was very lonely after my husband died. I heard a lot of loneliness from the women. And then, of course, this was February 2019. Well, in March 2020, there was lockdown, and women living alone, senior women living alone, and having no money, any extra money to spend, they were very, very lonely.
Right.
Now, lots of them have been alone most of their lives. Lots of us had children, and we have grandchildren, but there's lots of senior women that have been alone most of their lives and lived alone. So they had sort of a different set of resources to manage, internal resources to manage being alone all the time.
Right.
But even they talked about, gosh, I kept thinking, what if I fell? And I couldn't get up, what would happen? And so there was a lot of that kind of conversation, the fears and worries. And, we're more vulnerable now. It's funny when your body starts getting old, you get feeling vulnerable. Yeah. And, and women have always been more vulnerable anyway. We had to learn how to cope with that sort of thing most of our lives. But it's just doubles and triples. And then when you have no money and you can't afford a taxi and, this sort of thing, and you're worried about food, and, it's just this very, very sad stories. And most days I just, I just thought, oh, well, thank goodness we're going to try to do something, because we're not getting help from the government and we can't get it quickly enough, even if they did. So, we have to do it ourselves. So, and that's one of the things actually that a lot of the women liked about the conversations we had, the sense of they can do it, the sense of they'd be able to keep their autonomy and their decision.
Absolutely.
Because I went and I applied like everybody should. I applied for the seniors rent geared to income housing. It was a very sad day. I was very depressed afterwards. The whole agency model didn't appeal to me at all. Them telling me where I was going to go, and if I didn't accept that one, then I went to the bottom of the list, and it's already 10 years long. And there wasn't any hope in that office, none. And so I left feeling pretty depressed. I couldn't get a job. I've lost most of my hearing, so I can't get a job. And anyway, nobody wants old ladies. So I was overqualified for most jobs I'd apply for. So anyway, it was just, the stories were just very compelling, very true, very real. It's a private Facebook group. They know that they're pretty safe in talking with each other without interference from people that shouldn't be hearing their stories, or they don't want hearing their stories. But some have started. I've had some interviews and some needy people asking to talk with some of my members, and there's been a few stories and they've shared, and I just think it's so brave. They just made me feel very humble to talk with them, because they were so full of determination and against so many odds, like so many difficult situations, getting evicted left, right, and center every time they turn around, rent evictions, illegal evictions, just dreadful stuff.
Right.
There's so much to unpack there, Pat. You are an amazing woman. Terrific. Just the fact, so there are two key things that help someone that suffer from mental health. And in the situations that you're describing, I can't imagine that they aren't. But community and being able to tell your story. And just the fact that you provided a platform by which that women can get together, feel safe, feel heard, feel that they have a community, probably day and night, at 3 a.m. when they're all alone and they need someone to talk to. There you guys are. I just think it's beautiful. But on top of that, you're linking people together to find a home. Why do you think it is that it is so hard to get lower income housing? Like, most of the people that you're talking about had a career. Most of the people you're talking about probably have some sort of pension. Not most, but some of the people you're talking about have some sort of pension. I imagine you do. Why? So I always think, I'm going to retire. I'm going to take relax. It's going to be easier. And you're describing something different. So why do you think that is, especially in Canada, where we take care of so many people?
Yeah, well, in the 80s, the political people decided to, the feds decided to download housing to the provinces, and then the provinces downloaded it to the municipalities.
Okay.
But in the process during that time, two things were happening. They stopped building rent geared to income housing, basically stopped. I mean, compared to what they had been building, it was a stop. They still were building here and there, some municipalities more than others, but knowing full well that you had the baby boomers were coming, and we're a lot of people all retiring at the same time. And they didn't plan well for that. So we started out in a bad situation starting in the 90s. And then the other thing that happened was what's currently referred to as the financialization of housing. So it used to be that you'd get a house and maybe live in it for, with your family and it was your retirement egg, something that was going to help you. You could sell it. And it used to be that housing was recognized as a human right, a human need that was above and beyond any kind of profit motive. And so, but we started to think of housing as this, I can start buying houses and actually make a living from that. Wow, this is cool. And a lot of people started doing that. And even then it wasn't so bad, but it's when the corporations started doing that.
Right.
When the big REITs, real estate investment trusts, would go in and they just buy up everything, start renting, and then they had no interest in doing anything but make a profit. And so everything just started to go up. And then, of course, this ridiculous to extreme amount of money for most people. And seniors and senior women are generally, have less income once they retire, simply because they didn't work the entire time raising children or whatever. So even with, professional jobs like I was a nurse or a teachers and stuff like that. It only takes a few negative events, and maybe even just one, like getting very sick and having to take care of your health and give up your job because of it. And then suddenly you're on the path to, not having enough income to live in this particular mess we're in. It's broken. The system's broken. It's just broken. And so once I met all these women in the beginning, I thought, well, I better find out more about this, because I didn't know anything about it. It was just I decided I wanted to find some women to live with, but I didn't understand sort of the context. So I did some research. And at that time, there were about 350,000 single senior women living alone in Ontario. And about 150,000 of them were living in poverty. And it just blew my mind, as you said, or, James, in Canada, really? In Canada? But then I thought that all my life when I'd hear about children in northern Canada without drinking water, getting sores all over them. And I used to think, what? So here it was me now. And it was all these women that were coming and talking with me. And I thought, well, we just can't dwell on that. We can't do anything about that, any of that. So let's do what we can for ourselves.
So Pat might be slightly behind us. He was lagging earlier today when we were doing some interviews. So the next question I kind of have is, how does it work? So you have how many thousand women on your Facebook site?
2,300.
2,300. So you got 2,300 women, all that are unhomed, unhoused, or have a house, but they're slowly slipping into poverty. Mm-hmm. How do you link them out? Like, how do you go about finding the right people to live with, especially since it's all across Ontario? Like, I struggle finding someone to live with that I interview that comes to my house, but I couldn't imagine doing it over Facebook when you have to have like, you really want to have similar hobbies and likes and dislikes and stuff like that. So how does that operation work?
Yeah, well, we started doing it on Facebook and it got too cumbersome, a job for Facebook. So we opened the website in 21. We had to get some things automated. It was just too much work. But essentially, I developed this sense. I mean, I didn't make it up. It didn't come out of my brain. I just searched for information and then pulled it together into a program. but essentially, compatibility is going to be and is the most important thing. The place where you live, if you can't get, if you don't get all of your wishes met in the place where you live, well, that's not so bad. But if you can't live with the people you're living with, that's bad. And we really can't physically, emotionally, and spiritually move again. Moving is horribly stressful and terribly expensive. So I thought, well, we've got to really work on the compatibility thing. So I created a series of questions. And so now when they're on the website, they join the website and they answer all these questions, and that forms a profile, kind of like a dating site. But we're not talking about just loving to walk on the beach. That goes, I love margaritas. Anyway, but important, but things like do you have pets? What kind of pets? What do you think of talking about religion, talking about politics? What about behaviors like alcohol use, cannabis use, smoking, all of those things? It's quite lengthy. And they introduce themselves at the top, and the idea is to sort of put your best foot forward, tell everybody what you want them most to know about you. And so then, on the website, then they can go and read other people's profiles and so on. And so then you're mentioning across Ontario. So what we do is, if you live in Toronto, you join the Toronto group on the website and meet with those.
Okay.
And if you're interested in living in Toronto, you can join that group too. So, Ottawa, Kingston, across the province, Sudbury. So yeah, they spend a lot of time. It's people come often, and they've just got an eviction notice, and so they only have 60 days, and they want a place to live together with other people. I think sometimes they have it wrong. They think what we have already is groups of women living where they can sort of pop in and pop themselves
Right.
in. But it doesn't work that way, so that sometimes they're disappointed. But we really can't help. We can't help urgent need, because the compatibility issue is so important. So they need to do all this work of reading about each other, and then contacting each other, and then getting together with each other to the point enough time so that they feel mostly confident that this is a relationship that they can live with, in a home together.
So Pat, after you take the compatibility piece and you've worked with these folks and found somebody, do you have relationships with real estate? Do you have relationships with landlords? What are the sort of the things that you folks are working with as well, trying to flesh out this plan for your, I'm going to call them your clients?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's fine. When I started it, I had no intention of ever getting involved with them helping them find homes, because I still was under the illusion of that there were houses out there for them to live in, and they could find them and find rentals to live in. But that just wasn't so. And even in 2019, but definitely is not so now. There's nothing. There's a zero, pretty much a zero vacancy rate almost everywhere. There's, a one-bedroom you can't get a one-bedroom apartment for under about $1,500 now. So a two bedrooms at $2,000 or more, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just not doable to live alone, period. And so what happened was I started to think about this. Well, how could we get involved to actually help find places for them to live? And coincidentally, and I have to say, there's been a lot of coincidental things that have happened over the last 4 or 5 years that have struck me as like almost providential, because just when I start to think about something we need to do or get worried about some angle of this whole problem, somebody shows up. The right person shows up. So it's been quite interesting from that perspective. But anyway, so a real estate investor, a female, lives in Ottawa, Monica Siegenthaler, and she contacted me, and she had contacted me before, but I kind of brushed her off because, like I said, I didn't think I was going to have to get involved in that. So she contacted me again just when I started to worry about it, and I thought, well, I wonder. So she and I got talking. She had she was, was building a portfolio of places, but she was previously a social worker. She understood. She had a social conscience. She wanted to help as much as make some money for herself. So the conversation got better and better. And finally, I said, my two homemates were currently my homemates. The three of us were looking for a place in Peterborough. There was nothing, or very little, and what was there was pretty bad, not safe, simply not safe. And so we were getting discouraged, and I said to her, would you buy us a house? And she said, absolutely. So we started looking at houses for sale, which there was lots of houses for sale, not very much for rent. So that gave us an opportunity to see. And of course, she was very good. She talked to us about what she could afford and what, how it would look that way. And she got to know us quite well. So we end up with a landlord now that is very much engaged with us in making this a success. And so it's been great. We managed, there's three of us, and we are all living affordably, and we have money at the end of the month, and we have each other to support each other through COVID and now, arthritis and everything else that's happening, deafness. It's been awesome. This, there's sort of nothing better than, you can't buy some of the stuff that happens. You couldn't pay for it,
Right.
just that hug, good night, how are you in the morning, crying with you when you're crying. It's just, you can't buy that.
It's like Thursday nights with Soaring Prophets with James here. This is what I do with him every Thursday night. So yeah, you're not far off there, Pat. I feel you on that one. So Pat, in your organization, again, with the need that you have out there, are you in any way actively recruiting investors that could possibly come in here and work with you?
Well, I've left the investment piece with Monica because she's in some kind of a real estate investor organization. Okay. She's always looking for places, keeping her eye open. But what we started was inviting private landlords to work with us. Okay. So we get a home, we get a private landlord. We talk with them about the kinds of things we need, like we need as long a lease as they can give us. We need security of tenure at our age. We don't, and enough, the women have been enough of them have been through the, eviction mill. They don't want to ever do that again. So the landlord has to agree to give us, maybe a 5-year lease, or at least the promise of a minimum of 5 years. They have to understand that we are fixed income, so we don't have, a job where we're going to get more pay, and next year we get this teeny bit added on every year, and so we have to have rent controlled conditions. So they have to agree to that. But the plus side is that we make excellent tenants. We're really good tenants. We might not make a lot of money, but 3 or 4 of us can pay the rent, and our income always comes in at the end of the month, and we pay our bills, and we take care of the place.
Right.
That's what our landlady says. She's a real estate investor, as I mentioned. And she said, "Oh, you guys," and we were on top of it. We let her know when something isn't working or we're worried about something. And she just loves it. She just loves us. And we love her.
I can imagine that. Like, it is hard to, just like you said, it's hard to find rentals. It's also sometimes hard to find the appropriate renter for the house.
Yeah.
And when you have someone who has lived a long life, knows what respect is, because not everyone does, and respects the place they live in, and only has the occasional party maybe once a year where they invite 30, 40 people.
Oh, you wouldn't believe our parties. By 9:00, we're in bed every night.
Right?
We have the best parties at 6:00.
I want to start coming to your parties because my parties go too late. But I just think that's amazing. Now, I do have like a question that I think I know the answer already, but I think it's something to explore. So you said at the beginning that it's women only. Now, I'm sure there are men out there, probably less men, because I think the demographic is men don't live as long as women. So once a certain age hits, there are more women than men. But I'm sure there's men struggling. Have you had any men approach you or any other people say, "Hey," and why do you not have that in your group as well?
Well, we might went down the road. There's
Sure.
a lot. There's just a whole lot of work still to do for the women,
Mhm.
and it's another whole layer of profile, like a
Right.
questionnaire. But yeah, I do occasionally. Men contact me about it, and they're very nice about it. But they'll just say, "Do you know of any group for men?" And I talked with one at length actually for a while to see if he wanted to, because he seemed interested to start
Right.
do something similar. And but it's a lot of work. I work very long hours to make this all happen. So
Yeah.
he couldn't. It takes a lot of work.
Too
So
much for him.
yeah, but and sometimes intergenerational housing, like shared housing, is quite popular around the world now. And that can work out beautifully too. So that, who knows, we won't live in that area too. I at this point, we're only just sort of catching up to our members all the time, trying to stay ahead a bit.
That's an interesting question. What is the age cutoff? Like, is it women, or like it does say senior women, but is there an age cutoff that you start at?
55.
Okay.
And most
I'm
of
so
our
close.
yeah now most of our members are somewhere between 55 and 75.
Okay.
We do have some members older than that. We have one lovely lady. She's 85. She's awesome. So yeah, but most are clustered actually probably between 65 and 75.
Nice. So going back to how this all started, I'm so sorry that you lost your husband. That's a tragedy. I know. It sounds like you're on a bit of a venture. I always like to kind of delve into who the people are who are running these beautiful organizations. Obviously, you were a venturer already, and it takes a bit of an adventurer's heart to start a business. So, what possessed you to do the boat thing, and what was it? What was it that you guys were doing?
Oh gosh. Well, he was my second husband. I had a long marriage, 30-year marriage that ended when I was 50. And I met Dave a year later, and we fell in love, just head over heels. We were stupid. We were just like, people kept going, "Oh, will you two stop?" It was really quite extraordinary, and I didn't care. It was quite wonderful, and we just fit. And one day we were still dating. We hadn't talked even about living together, and he said, "I've always wanted to live on a boat." And I said, "You got to be kidding! So have I." And he was a sailor in his previous marriage, and I was a sailor in my previous marriage. We had boats that we sailed, recreationally, and so it was a natural step, and I didn't care anything about space. I mean, I thought right away, oh yes, this is it. This is absolutely it. I want this adventure. So I had to give away all my, anything breakable. And so I gave away all of my, china and silver. But you know what? It was kind of fun. I gave it to people I knew, and they would be so excited to get it. It was wonderful. It felt wonderful. My niece cried when I gave her a few things. She said, I'd never have this stuff if it weren't for you. And so it was fun. And I downsized like crazy. Now, Dave had a little more trouble downsizing. He was a little bit of a packer. It was more like tools, He had to have every tool under the sun if he was going to live on a boat, because there was always going to be something to fix, which he was absolutely right. But, oh my gosh. So finally, we had to come up with something, because the boat was going to get overloaded with stuff we wouldn't be able to move. So the deal was, if you couldn't find a place to put it, then it didn't come.
I love that.
And so he was really sad giving away some of his tools.
But it's such an amazing concept, even that, like handing off your things that are important to you to your family members and loved ones before you die. So then you get to decide who gets your precious items, and that they're going to be taken care of, and that they're going to be respected and honored, and that story will be told when it's sitting on the shelf. That is such a interesting concept. Were you thinking like that when you were like giving away things? You know what? Julie will really like this slipper. I don't know. Sorry, that's all I came to mind. And her daughter's daughter will be able to cherish this and maybe talk about me and my boat.
And maybe what?
And maybe talk about me and my boat.
Oh,
my adventures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so at that time. I still felt like most people do, that I was going to live forever. So but since then I have thought of that. Yeah. As I've gotten more, as I get closer and closer to facing the end, then I've thought, it's nice to create legacy. It's nice to share, the best of yourself before you leave.
Right. And with people who love you and will value and cherish those things. I think that's fantastic. So Pat, your organization, obviously with the numbers that you're putting out there, is a very valuable need, and the organization is getting traction. You said a little bit before about, the federal government and funding and the programs that are out there. If you had a magic wand, $1 billion, what is the solution to this problem? How do we help some of our people that have, done so much for our nation, and how do we kind of give back? What is your fix?
I think it's a combination of things. As I talked earlier about the financialization of housing, although I don't think we have to get rid of the idea that you can make a living by owning houses. I think we need to get it settled down, put some controls on it, find a way to make it possible without, driving the prices up crazy the way they've gone up. I think we need to the politicians need to take some risks with this housing. The mess it's in, it's not going to get better unless politicians are brave and do the right things, the brave things. So, I don't have a lot of hope for that changing, but if there was a way that money would fix that, I'd like to see that happen. We have to build. They're talking about building, but they're still focusing, a little bit on the affordable side, but mostly on the middle class. And a lot of the, younger people are struggling too with, salaries haven't gone up and housing has gone up crazy. So they can't afford homes or can't afford to stay in the ones they're in with the mortgage rates so high. I think we need to we need to be creative with building. We need to make it get these things built quickly, and things like tiny homes and container homes and modular homes. We need municipalities that are interested in and willing to change some of the bylaws to get these places up. If I had $1 billion, I'd build. I'd build and build and build, and do it quickly. I'd like to see. I'd like to see sort of more. The lenders, like the CMHC, is working hard at providing funds, but I'd like to see more funding for nonprofits. I'm not just me, but nonprofit builders, nonprofit organizations that, if I had a nonprofit builder interested in working with me, well then I wouldn't build, he'd build, and I'd or she'd build, and I'd put the women in there, but I can't get funding. We spend an inordinate amount of time just applying for grant money that, like, for $25,000, which isn't even that much, and it takes 6 weeks for us to write the grant proposal, 3 of us, and we don't know if we're going to get it, and we might not, and then we're into the next one, and this sort of it's just quite ridiculous. And I know that if we could get funding, even just enough to sort of buy one house for maybe 6 women, and then use that as collateral to buy another one, and so on, we could ultimately make a big difference and get our women housed. So those are some of the things, the ideas.
Have you done any fundraisers or any organized things to raise money outside of the government?
Well, I'm not, that's not my thing. Right. And I really don't know how to do it. So luckily, again, as I mentioned earlier, just when I was starting to panic about it, a woman came along, and she's got the whole thing started. She's just going crazy. And so she's building a whole plan and thinks way bigger than me. So, and she
thinks wait. Thinks way better than you, bigger than you.
Way bigger.
Way bigger.
Yeah, like
you are housing 2,500 women, or trying to, but she thinks. But I'm just, you know what? Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but I'm on the funding stage of, you have $25, you'll give your 20. Oh wow, $25. We just got $25. She's like, oh, we need 5 million. And I'm like, okay. So, but she knows how to do that. And she says, there's lots of people with money out there, Pat. I'm going to find them. They're going to be interested in this. And it's going to happen. So I'm hopeful that will. So that's her job now. And I'm feeling confident.
It's so amazing that you're finding the right people for the job. And it sounds like she's the right person for the job. Now, so I have your website up there. Is there a way to contact you? Say someone wants to help in some way, or they want to be. So obviously, when you go to your website, it says how to join and become join the you said Tinder, but I know it's not called that. The group where you get to maybe find a house with other women. Is there a way for people fundraising or giving money, or is there a way to contact you also on that website? And how best to contact?
Up at the top of the website, there's what we call the top menu, and in red, and there's one button up there called Donate. Okay. And that takes you to a page where you can donate. Yeah.
I like
there's another one that's about what's that?
I was just being smart with him. I'm sorry.
He said, what's Tinder?
Terrible.
So, and then,
Yeah.
and there's another page for private landlords that says private landlords, so they can learn about what we're about and how we partner with them. So, yeah.
So if you're a private landlord and you have one room, but you don't like, so when I left my wife, I had a house, I had an empty house, and I had to rent a room because I also had to pay my bills.
Yeah.
Now, is that an option too? Like that, a private landlord would go to you and go, I have one room. Do you want to put someone in it, or are you specifically looking to group women together?
Yeah. I mean, the fundamental program is the compatibility, the living together concept.
Okay.
And so when women come and I help them find other housing agencies, other places they can go if they are in an urgent need. I mean, I hate to see anyone have to go to a shelter, but sometimes it happens. But we kind of have to stick to that because that's really the fundamental.
Yeah, it's hard to be everything to
Solution.
everybody.
It's the fundamental solution to senior women being unable to afford to live and find out.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. I was just wondering for people who are trying to help, but you're absolutely right. So that brings in the community thing, like-minded hobbies, and being of interest in going to do grocery shopping, for example, now becomes an event that you can do together as opposed to always being alone. So yeah, no, I agree with you. Your model, your system completely makes sense. I think it's just the most amazing way to go because you've built in that community, and loneliness is the number one reason that problems happen. Yes, Pat, did you raise your hand?
Just in the comments.
Yeah, we're raising.
Oh, people are saying hi.
Yeah.
Everyone, Pat says hi. Pat Trick says hi. I've got them all confused. Yeah, so I think it's amazing what you're doing. I love what you're doing. And what are your next steps? Now, you said that eventually you're going to branch out to other ages and maybe some men and stuff like that. But obviously, as you're saying, you're still early days. So what are your next steps now that are current that maybe someone can help you with?
Yeah, well, I think as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I'd like to get started owning and putting some houses into land trusts where they would be affordable in perpetuity. So as an organization, if we can start to amass some houses, then we can keep them that way forever. No matter what happens to us, they can never be expensive. And the land trust idea appeals to me a lot. The other thing is doing our own building. A lot of the women are very interested in tiny home living, but having a central hub where everybody can get together, big kitchen, dining room, playroom, library, stuff like that, but have their own private space. With a bathroom. Their own bathroom is big. And we can't always get that in a 4-bedroom house. You can't always get 4 bathrooms. So it would be interesting to get land and to work with builders and nonprofit builders and build a community, like a flagship community to start with, but then do it again and again and again. I'm not going to live long enough for any of this stuff, but I like thinking about it. And I think we need more partners in this because it is so big. It's such a big problem, and so I'm interested in working with other nonprofits for sure, and even for-profits. I mean, I think the right kind of relationship, it could work just fine.
Right. I think, Pat, I just think that senior women living together is such a fabulous idea. Way back when Lisa Browning told us about you and that she met you and how lovely you are, she gushed for quite a while, and she did not even explain how great you are. You are a true champion who saw a need and is now literally saving people's lives that are like you said, living on the street, living in cars. And these are the people that used to take care of us. Like you yourself took care of hundreds of people as they were laying and hurting. And I just want to say, I thank you so much for taking this on and being a true champion. I think you are a beautiful woman, and what you're doing right now is incredible. And you keep on keeping on. And I hope people out there are profiteers, are listening, and they want to help. If you want to send $5, I'm sure she'll take it. Go hit that donation button.
I'll
And
take
if you are, she'll take $1. If you're out there and you're in a car and you're hurting and you need a place to stay and you're trying to figure things out, or you just need a community to talk to, I know she still has the Facebook group running.
Yep.
And she has the Senior Women's Living Together website that you can join. And if you happen to be a property developer or maybe a bank manager that can help out with some loans, please do give her a call, because you know what? It sickens me to learn this. I had no idea the true struggle that older people have. I knew it was hard to get into a house. I knew it was hard to get into the Canadian homes that are like rental controlled. But I had no idea to the extent that our mothers are sleeping on the street, and that just tears me apart. And I really do thank you for taking care of that, and I appreciate you. I think it's time for us to kind of wrap up. Profiteers out there, thank you so much for listening. I know these stories that we tell are sometimes hard. This one is hard for me because I think it's so important. So please do get to that website and help if you can. I appreciate your time, Pat Dunn. I think you're incredible. Profiteers out there, let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together. Pat, take us home.
Yeah, Pat, obviously what you're doing out there is fantastic, and it does. It really touches a need of something that, unfortunately, a lot of people kind of look at the seniors, that they're established, that they've made it, they've done their thing in the world, and that they must be okay. And in a lot of ways, it's our parents and our grandparents that, have shouldered the brunt all of our lives. And so we just sort of take for granted that, hey, maybe they've still got it. They've done it. They're able to do it. But everyone needs a hand up, and everyone needs a little bit of help every once in a while. So it's fantastic what you're doing. Profiteers out there, if there's anything you can do to help out Miss Dunn and her association and organization, these are great people that are out there trying to find a spot to live. I know myself, I will certainly be checking out what they do as far as maybe there's a partnership. Who knows? We'll see what we can put together. Pat, at the end of all of our little shows here, we ask our guests to take us out on a little word of wisdom. So that it's that time of night. And from me, folks, thank you again for everything. Let's make some money together, guys. Pat?
Oh, I'm supposed to have something wise and wonderful to say, aren't I? You can do it. No matter what it is, you can do it. You just get out there, sit down, make a plan, and get into action.
That just makes sense.
That. And I think that's perfect. It's what we say here all the time. Thank you so much, Pat Dunn, for being a champion.